African Americans and the struggle for equality. African Americans have faced immense hardships throughout history, including violence, unemployment, poor housing, poverty, lynching, increased incarceration rates, poor education, and systemic economic inequality. These challenges stem from deeply rooted systemic racism that caused great distress across generations. Yet many leaders have courageously advocated for change throughout history. Among them is Ruby Nell Bridges, a relentless, kind, and committed individual who paved the way to integrate schools and left an indelible mark on the civil rights movement. History. To fully understand Ruby Bridges' significance, we must first look back before she stepped into William Frantz Elementary School and changed the dynamic of segregated education, although segregation in schools was declared illegal in 1954. It was still practiced at William Frantz Elementary in New Orleans, Louisiana. The roots of this inequality trace back to the Civil War era, 1861 to 1865, when enslaved children were denied the right to attend school. After the Civil War, the U.S. government required former slaveholding states to educate both black and white children. In 1868, the Constitution guaranteed protection and equal rights, including access to education. However, Southern leaders vehemently opposed this progress. By 1870, most Southern states adopted Jim Crow laws, which segregated black and white people in every aspect of public life, including schools, parks, restaurants, trains, theaters, and even water fountains. Despite the 14th Amendment, Southern states continued to legally segregate children.
Confidence and self-esteem, African Americans still struggle against a system known as Jim Crow. This legal segregation has been in force for decades, preventing black people from exercising their rights as citizens.
Citing the 1896 Plessy v. Ferguson Supreme Court decision. This ruling upheld the principle of separate but equal, but the reality was far from equal. Black children attended poorly maintained schools with collapsing floors, leaking roofs, outdated books, and overcrowded classrooms. By 1952, civil rights advocates began to challenge segregation. Thurgood Marshall, a civil rights lawyer, represented 5 families in the landmark Brown v. Board of Education case. On May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court declared segregation unconstitutional.
Brown was represented by NAACP lawyer Thurgood Marshall. He argued that segregated schools were harmful and left black children with feelings of inferiority,
making it illegal. However, many districts delayed integrating schools, and violent protests by white parents obstructed progress. In 1957, the Little Rock Nine became pioneers of integration when they entered Little Rock Central High School in Arkansas, despite facing violent resistance. Their bravery paved the way for Ruby Bridges' historic first steps into William Frantz Elementary on November 14, 1960. An early understanding of Ruby Bridges. Ruby Bridges was born on September 8, 1954, in Tylertown, Mississippi. At the age of 2, her family moved to New Orleans, Louisiana, in search of better opportunities. As the eldest of 5 siblings, Ruby was a quiet, curious, and observant child. She enjoyed playing softball, climbing trees, and jumping rope. Much of her time was spent helping care for her younger siblings, while her parents worked tirelessly to make ends meet. Ruby's mother, Lucille, instilled strong values in her, often reminding her that she was doing God's work and was chosen for a reason. This foundation of faith and resilience prepared Ruby for the challenges she would face as the first African-American child to integrate William Frantz Elementary School. Ruby's first day at William Frantz Elementary. On November 14, 1960, Ruby Bridges walked into history. Wearing a white dress and carrying her school supplies, she was escorted by 4 federal marshals and accompanied by her mother. Outside the school, hundreds of angry protesters screamed racial slurs, hurled objects, and held up hateful signs. A woman even brandished a coffin with a black doll inside, a horrifying symbol of intimidation. Ruby, just 6 years old, walked calmly and quietly, head held high, as federal marshals shielded her from the mob. Once inside, the hostility continued. No teacher, except Barbara Henry, a white teacher from Boston, was willing to teach Ruby. For the entire year, Ruby was the sole student in her classroom. She was denied access to the cafeteria due to fears of poisoning, had no recess, and spent most of her time isolated from other students. Despite these challenges, Ruby never showed fear or hesitation. According to federal marshals, she even prayed for the forgiveness of the protesters. Her family faced significant backlash. Her father lost his job, and her grandparents were evicted from their farm. Yet, they stood firm, supporting Ruby's fight for justice. The legacy of Ruby Bridges over time. The tensions at William Frantz Elementary subsided. Though progress was slow, a small number of white students returned to the school, and by the following year, Ruby was no longer alone in her classroom. She continued her education in integrated schools, becoming a symbol of resilience and hope. Ruby's courage helped break down barriers in education, making her the first African-American child to desegregate William Frantz Elementary School. Where is Ruby Bridges today? Now, 70 years old, Ruby Bridges is an author, activist, and speaker who resides in New Orleans with her husband and 4 sons. She chairs the Ruby Bridges Foundation, which promotes tolerance, unity, and respect for all differences. Her foundation works nationwide, advocating for integrated education and fighting against discrimination. In 2024, Ruby Bridges was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, a testament to her enduring impact. William Frantz Elementary School is now a historic landmark of the civil rights movement. Closing reflection. Ruby Bridges' legacy lives on as a reminder of the power of courage and resilience. Her actions as a 6-year-old girl changed the course of history and paved the way for a more inclusive future. Let us honor her by standing up for what is right, embracing diversity, and loving one another, regardless of the color of our skin. Thank you, Ruby Bridges, for showing the world that even the smallest steps can lead to monumental change.
Take heed to my message, understand my story and what I went through and why. I think once they understand that and relate it to their own lives, that hopefully it will help us to move closer to one another and rid our country of racism.